What really tore the Roloff family apart? And is there any hope of putting the pieces back together? For nearly 2 decades, viewers of Little People, Big World have watched the Roloff family grow, love, struggle, and clash. But behind the scenes of the beloved TLC show, deeper conflicts have simmered, tensions that would pit father against sons, siblings against each other, and even spouses caught in the middle. Why did Matt Roloff's relationship with his sons Zach and Jeremy unravel so publicly? Was it really just about the family farm, or something deeper and more painful? Did reality TV fame bring the Roloffs closer, or break them apart? In this video, we dive into the emotional crossroads the Roloff family now faces. From bitter disagreements over legacy and land, to surprising reconciliations and powerful lessons learned along the way, this is the untold story behind the headlines and social media posts. Stay with us, because what you're about to hear may change how you see the Roloff family forever. Matt Roloff's story begins far from the lush green fields of Oregon. Born on October 7, 1961, in San Francisco, California, Matthew James Roloff was not just any ordinary child. Diagnosed with dystrophic dysplasia, a rare form of dwarfism, Matt endured countless surgeries throughout his early years. But even as a young boy, he showed grit and a vibrant spirit that would define his legacy. Despite physical challenges, Matt's personality was bigger than life. Creative, resilient, and driven to do things his own way. Hello viewers, welcome back to my channel. For Roloff family latest news update, please subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon. Before the fame, Matt worked in Silicon Valley as a computer programmer, carving a path in the tech world while raising a young family. But it was a bold decision in the early 1990s that would forever change the course of the Roloffs' lives: the move to a fixer-upper farmhouse in Hillsboro, Oregon. That rundown property would soon transform into Roloff Farms, the beating heart of the family, and, later, the iconic backdrop for Little People, Big World. Matt was the mastermind behind the farm's expansion. With ambition and vision, he turned 34 acres of land into a pumpkin season powerhouse. Castles, pirate ships, western towns, bridges. Matt's creative mind built a wonderland, not just for his kids, but for thousands of annual visitors. Roloff Farms wasn't just a place to grow pumpkins. It became a symbol of possibility and imagination, especially for a man who never let his physical limitations dictate his dreams. But the real breakthrough came in 2006, when TLC launched Little People, Big World. The show opened a window into the daily life of a Little People family, and Matt quickly emerged as the series' centerpiece. As both executive producer and patriarch, Matt used the platform to challenge stereotypes, raise awareness about dwarfism, and showcase his unique approach to parenting, farming, and problem-solving. Viewers watched as he juggled being a businessman, a builder, a motivational speaker, and a father of 4, all while navigating the ups and downs of his marriage to Amy Roloff. His assertive personality, big ideas, and entrepreneurial mindset often clashed with others, but that tension helped drive the show's authenticity and success. Through the lens of reality TV, Matt Roloff became more than a man. He became a symbol of perseverance. From surgeries and setbacks to lawsuits and land battles, fans saw Matt tackle everything head-on, usually with a pen, blueprint, or chainsaw in hand. His role as the central figure of Little People, Big World was no accident. He was the engine behind the family's dream, the architect of the farm, and the visionary who believed that their story was worth telling. And so, as Little People, Big World grew into one of TLC's longest-running reality series, Matt remained its heart. He wasn't just building a farm. He was building a legacy. While Matt Roloff's life on the farm has become iconic, the story of Little People, Big World is incomplete without examining his role as a father and the deeply layered relationships he shares with his 4 children: Zach, Jeremy, Molly, and Jacob. Each child has carved out a different path, and each has had a unique relationship with Matt, shaped not just by shared blood, but by circumstances, values, and life choices. Let's begin with Zach Roloff, perhaps the most central figure among the Roloff children within the show's narrative. As the only one of the 4 kids born with dwarfism, Zach shared a physical bond with Matt that extended into emotional and personal territory. Matt often spoke with pride about Zach's bravery, his willingness to undergo surgeries, play competitive soccer, and face the world head-on. However, the father-son bond was also tested by expectations and frustrations. Zach at times felt pressure to live up to his father's standards on the farm and in business. Viewers could sense tension when Zach didn't always follow Matt's vision or questioned his decisions, especially as he became a husband and father himself. Then there's Jeremy Roloff, Zach's fraternal twin. Though he doesn't have dwarfism, Jeremy was every bit immersed in farm life growing up. He and Matt worked side by side on countless projects, from building trebuchets to fixing tractors. Jeremy admired Matt's work ethic and entrepreneurial spirit, but as he matured, he developed a vision of independence that diverged from his father's. The eventual breakdown in communication, particularly around buying a portion of the farm, revealed how different their goals had become. Their bond, once filled with mutual admiration, became strained when family business collided with personal dreams. Molly Roloff, often referred to as the Quiet Roloff, has maintained the most private life of all the siblings. Matt has always spoken fondly of Molly's intelligence and calm demeanor. She was a top student, a loyal daughter, and someone who rarely appeared in conflict on screen. But as time passed, Molly drifted away from the public eye and the show. She moved out of state, pursued a career in accounting, and only made occasional appearances at family events. While she and Matt seemed to maintain a loving, if long-distance, relationship, fans noticed her absence in key episodes and public milestones. It left many wondering, was this a quiet form of stepping away from not just the show, but the emotional drama? And then we come to Jacob Roloff, the youngest and arguably most vocal about his disillusionment with the show and family structure. Jacob has publicly criticized Little People, Big World, calling it scripted and manipulative. He's also shared deeply personal stories of trauma from his time during filming, including alleged abuse by a TLC producer. His relationship with Matt has been complex, at times warm, at times clearly distant. Jacob, a free thinker and outspoken critic of capitalism and organized religion, has chosen a lifestyle far removed from his upbringing. Still, in recent years, there have been signs of healing. Jacob now works part-time on the farm, and his wife Isabel has been seen attending family functions. But the scars, for both father and son, run deep. Matt's parenting style, often described as ambitious, hands-on, and passionate, helped shape his children's childhoods in powerful ways. He encouraged them to explore, create, and dream big. From hayrides and treehouse builds to pumpkin patch traditions, Matt poured energy into making their childhood magical. But as they each matured, his drive to push boundaries often clashed with their desires to chart their own paths. Early signs of friction were visible even during the show's earlier seasons. Whether it was Jeremy pushing back on responsibilities, Zach expressing hesitation about farm projects, or Jacob refusing to follow the family's Christian upbringing, there were always undercurrents of tension. These weren't just plot points for TV. They were real, deeply personal challenges that grew louder as the children became adults. The reality is, Matt Roloff has had to grapple with an emotional truth that many parents face, loving each child equally, yet connecting with them in vastly different ways. Some of those bonds remain tight. Others are still healing or strained. But all are a testament to the complex, evolving nature of family, especially one lived out in the public eye. The Roloff family farm, once a symbol of unity, adventure, and tradition, became the epicenter of a storm that no one saw coming. For years, fans had seen Matt Roloff cultivating not just the land, but memories, traditions, and a legacy meant to be passed on. But behind the scenes, as the kids grew up and started families of their own, the future of Roloff Farms became less certain and much more contested. When Matt announced that he was ready to pass on the farm, hopes were high that one of the Roloff children, ideally Zach or Jeremy, would continue its legacy. Both brothers had shown deep interest in owning and running the property. Jeremy, with his background in photography and creative media, envisioned a modernized family retreat. Zach, who had stayed closely involved in farm activities and lived nearby, saw himself as a natural heir to the land he had known all his life. But negotiations quickly soured. Both Zach and Jeremy reportedly entered discussions with Matt about buying a portion of the farm. However, those talks fell apart. Zach, especially, had a very public fallout with Matt, expressing frustration that the negotiations weren't handled fairly or transparently. On social media, Zach called his father's actions extremely misguided and manipulative, a post that sent shockwaves through the LPBW fanbase. It was rare to see such raw honesty from the usually calm and reserved Zach. Matt, on the other hand, defended his decision-making. In interviews and on the show, he shared his belief that the farm was a complex business and not something he could simply hand over without ensuring long-term success. He emphasized the importance of protecting the property from financial risk. To him, it wasn't just about keeping the farm in the family, it was about who was truly ready to manage it. This deadlock led to Zach and Tori stepping away from the Roloff Farm's operations entirely. They relocated to Battleground, Washington, with their growing family, seeking a fresh start far from the business tensions. Jeremy and Audrey, too, eventually pursued separate ventures, investing in their own home and launching their marriage and faith-based brand online. Despite Jeremy's continued admiration for the farm life, his plans to purchase the land quietly faded into the background. Meanwhile, Amy Roloff, who had previously sold her portion of the farm to Matt following their divorce, watched the feud unfold with a mix of sadness and attachment. Amy had long been the emotional anchor of the family, and seeing her sons torn apart over land she once called home was difficult. Though she didn't involve herself deeply in the negotiations, Amy did express empathy toward Zach and acknowledge that things could have, and should have, been handled differently by Matt. Tori Roloff, Zach's wife, became a vocal supporter of her husband. While she didn't name names, her Instagram posts often hinted at the pain and disappointment the family experienced behind the scenes. Her focus shifted almost entirely toward her children, her photography business, and building a new life away from the limelight of Roloff Farms. Her decision to leave the show only amplified the feeling that something had deeply fractured. Audrey Roloff, never one to shy away from expressing her values online, also weighed in subtly. She posted about the importance of legacy, generational vision, and faith, often tying those sentiments to their decision to walk a different path from Jeremy's family roots. While she didn't publicly criticize Matt, there was a clear undertone of disappointment and perhaps disillusionment with how the family handled the transition. What should have been a joyous family milestone, the passing of the torch, became a rift that redefined relationships, distances, and dreams. The farm, once a beacon of Roloff family unity, now symbolized division and heartbreak. And perhaps the most painful part of all, the sense that this chapter didn't have to end this way. As tensions within the Roloff family mounted, the quiet frustration that had simmered for years finally erupted into the public eye. At the center of the storm were Zach Roloff and his father, Matt Roloff, once a tight-knit father-son duo who had worked side by side on the farm, now fractured by deep-rooted mistrust and disappointment. It all started when Zach made a rare and bold move. He publicly aired his frustrations in interviews and social media posts. In one particularly revealing interview, Zach didn't mince words. He accused Matt of manipulating the family narrative and not being honest about the real intentions behind the farm sale. Fans were stunned when Zach shared that Matt's asking price for the farm was far beyond what he and Tori could afford, despite them wanting to keep the property within the family. Zach framed it as a betrayal, saying the conversations felt like a transaction rather than a father-son legacy handoff. Matt, on the other hand, didn't remain silent. Though he refrained from directly naming names, his cryptic Instagram posts were widely interpreted as subtle jabs at Zach and Tori. One post, featuring a serene sunset over the farm, was captioned with, "Sometimes letting go is the only way to move forward. Not everyone sees the bigger picture." Fans immediately speculated it was a reference to the fallout with Zach. Another post showed Matt smiling with Karen, suggesting he was finding peace despite the tension, but critics felt it dismissed the genuine hurt felt by his children. Tori Roloff, Zach's wife, also became a key figure in this unfolding drama. Known for her protective nature and transparency with fans, Tori used her Instagram stories to give subtle clues about their emotional state. She confirmed they had distanced themselves from the farm and from Matt, choosing instead to focus on their children and their new home. Tori's tone in some posts, like when she mentioned being tired of toxic behavior and wanting peace in their home, seemed to validate fans' suspicions that the divide wasn't just about business. It was deeply personal. As this divide spilled into the public, fans were forced to confront their own loyalties. Social media became a battleground of opinions. Some fans stood firmly with Zach and Tori, arguing that Matt had lost sight of the family-first mentality he once preached. Others sympathized with Matt, believing he had every right to handle the farm as a business asset and that Zach was being entitled. The once wholesome and united Roloff brand now appeared fractured, on camera and off. TLC's portrayal of the rift in Little People, Big World only intensified the polarization. In one season, producers leaned heavily into the farm drama, showing awkward conversations, unresolved tension, and interviews where both sides shared their hurt, but rarely their solutions. For longtime fans, it was heartbreaking. What once felt like a cozy family show now reflected the very real, raw fallout of a family splintering under pressure. This public fallout between Zach and Matt wasn't just a disagreement over land. It was the unraveling of a father-son bond in front of millions. And it raised a haunting question for fans. Could this family ever truly heal? While much of the drama around the Roloff family has played out on camera, particularly with Zach, Jeremy, and the ongoing farm feud, two of Matt and Amy's children have quietly stepped away from the reality TV spotlight, Jacob and Molly. But that doesn't mean their stories are any less important. Jacob Roloff, the youngest of the Roloff siblings, was once a staple on Little People, Big World. But as he grew older, Jacob became increasingly uncomfortable with the cameras. His departure from the show wasn't just a personal decision, it was also deeply tied to painful experiences he later revealed. In a heartbreaking public statement, Jacob disclosed that he had been molested by a former producer of the show during his childhood. This revelation shook the Roloff fanbase and cast a shadow over the series' earlier years. Jacob's decision to speak out was courageous, and Matt, to his credit, expressed public support for his son. Over time, Matt has made efforts to reconnect with Jacob and show up for him in different ways, especially as Jacob has grown into adulthood, married Isabel, and become a father himself. Jacob now lives a simpler life with Isabel and their son Mateo, often helping around the Roloff farm behind the scenes, but avoiding the camera lens. Matt has embraced Jacob's desire for privacy, while finding new ways to maintain their bond as father and son. Molly Roloff, the only daughter of the family, also made a deliberate decision to step back from the spotlight. After her early appearances on the show, she chose a quieter life far from the public eye. She married her college sweetheart, Joel Silvius, and settled in Washington. Molly has built a peaceful, private life centered on her career and marriage, rarely appearing in family photos or TLC updates. Still, despite her physical and emotional distance from the show, Molly remains close to her family. Matt and Amy have both made efforts to keep her involved, visiting when possible and always including her in family milestones. For Matt, the relationship with Molly is one marked by deep respect. He's careful to honor her boundaries, understanding that her retreat from fame is what has allowed her to thrive. In many ways, the dynamics Matt shares with Jacob and Molly are quieter, less dramatic, but equally complex. These relationships are defined not by headlines or public arguments, but by mutual effort, healing, and a shared understanding that love doesn't always need to be loud. Matt's journey with his two more private children is a testament to the evolving nature of parenting, especially as the kids grow into adults with their own needs, pain, and paths. His relationship with Jacob is still mending, yet rooted in support. With Molly, it's quieter but no less loving. Both connections show a side of Matt that's often overlooked. The father who listens, adjusts, and ultimately lets his kids choose their own way, even if it means walking away from the very show that made them all famous. As time has passed and tempers cooled, the Roloff family has found moments of healing, though it's still a work in progress. After years of tension, disappointment, and very public disagreements, especially between Zach and Matt, the question on many fans' minds has been simple: have things improved? In recent interviews and social media posts, there have been subtle yet meaningful signs that the relationship between Zach and Matt is slowly thawing. While they haven't returned to the tight-knit bond they once shared during the early days of Little People, Big World, both father and son appear to be more open to civil communication. They've been seen attending the same family gatherings, birthdays, holidays, and even a few casual farm visits. These moments, though often quiet and private, mark a shift from the cold distance that once defined their interactions. Matt, for his part, has made efforts to stay involved with his grandchildren, Zach and Tori's 3 kids, in particular. Despite past disagreements with their parents, Matt has shared warm, genuine moments with his grandkids. Whether it's building playhouses on the farm, setting up Christmas lights, or just posting adorable photos on Instagram, Matt clearly cherishes his role as Papa. Fans have noticed and appreciated these glimpses of love, often commenting how happy the kids look around their grandfather, even if the road to get there hasn't been smooth. One major factor in this healing process has been Matt's engagement to longtime partner Karen Chandler. At first, Karen's presence was a source of division, especially considering the complicated overlap with Amy's history on the farm. But over time, Karen has become a stabilizing force in Matt's life. Her influence, particularly her efforts to create a non-hostile environment, has helped soften some edges. Tori and Karen haven't always seen eye to eye, but recent years have seen fewer public jabs or icy silences between them. It's far from perfect, but it's more peaceful. Interestingly, Matt and Karen's engagement seems to have nudged Matt toward a more reflective phase of life. He's spoken about legacy, peace, and learning from past mistakes. While he's never fully admitted fault in the fallout with Zach, he's hinted at regrets and lessons learned. These small admissions might not seem like much, but for someone as strong-willed as Matt Roloff, they matter. Healing doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's just showing up, staying present, and letting time do its quiet work. For the Roloffs, especially Matt and Zach, that seems to be the case. They may never be as close as they once were, but the effort to move forward, no matter how slow, speaks volumes. The kids, the grandkids, and the ever-watchful fans are all witnessing a family that's learning how to mend itself in real time. Over the last 6 decades of his life, and nearly 2 decades on reality television, Matt Roloff has navigated an incredibly complex journey as a father. From building Roloff Farms into a symbol of hope and hard work, to managing the highs and lows of fame, his story is filled with both inspiration and heartache. Matt's role as the family patriarch was never an easy one. He made difficult decisions, sometimes controversial ones, in the name of growth and legacy. And while some of those choices drove wedges between him and his children, others brought about meaningful moments of connection, teaching him, and us, that parenting never comes with a perfect blueprint. The weight of being both a father and a public figure cannot be underestimated. Through business disputes, personal heartbreaks, and the public scrutiny that came with being the face of Little People, Big World, Matt often found himself walking a tightrope between his personal ambitions and the emotional well-being of his family. The sale of the farm, tensions with Zach and Jeremy, and navigating his evolving relationship with Karen all added new layers to his role, not just as a businessman, but as a father trying to hold a family together in the spotlight. But through all the conflict, one thing remains clear: forgiveness and growth are still possible. In the moments of quiet reconciliation with Zach, in his efforts to stay connected to Molly, Jacob, and their families, and in the time he spends with his grandchildren, Matt continues to demonstrate that healing can happen, even if it's slow and imperfect. The Roloff story is not just about farming or fame. It's about the strength it takes to admit faults, the courage to rebuild relationships, and the hope for a more unified future.